Well, for all those chocolate lovers nervous about rising prices, I sat down with Shawn Hackett to get some answers. He's president of Hackett Financial Advisers. I began by asking what's driving up these cocoa costs.
Well, primarily it was because of some pretty severe weather in Africa in the past year that severely hurt production in Ghana. And so because of that, we've been able to see cocoa prices rally substantially, despite the fact that most commodities in agriculture have been going down. So it was really an unusual weather event in Africa that allowed cocoa to buck the trend.
Now, as well as Ghana, which is the world's second largest cocoa producer, you also have Venezuela and you have Haiti, other big cocoa producing countries. Is cocoa saving their economies right now?
No doubt that these countries are highly dependent on their economies to price of cocoa. So with the prices high and farmer incomes good, it's definitely supporting their economies at a time when many countries, like oil-producing countries, are having a very difficult time with their economy. So no doubt cocoa producers are having a much better time of it right now.
Now, as you mentioned, the weather phenomenon in Africa, that's something that people can't predict. But do we expect the price of cocoa to keep rising?
I don't think so. I mean, when we look at weather, there's difference between El Nino, which is what we had last year, which is not good for cocoa production in Africa, and La Nina, which is where we're heading, which tends to be very good for production in Africa and in other parts of the country, of the world. So we would expect better production in the next year because of this shift in weather pattern, and that would likely mean a lowering of cocoa prices. And so we are expecting cocoa prices to start to fall from here.
And other than weather, are there any sort of headwinds that you see posing a challenge to cocoa production?
Well, we have a lot of aging trees in Africa and elsewhere where there's been underinvestment. And as aging trees don't produce as much each and every year. So in the time that you replace an old tree, from the time that it becomes highly productive, it's several years away. So even if these investments were made today, you're still looking at some headwinds of several years before you could really start to shift the age bracket of the cocoa trees down and improve overall yield. So I would say that's a major headwind for production to grow too much besides just an improvement due to weather. You'd have to see some longer term investments to turn that around.
And in terms of shifting gears from production to now for the consumer, how are these higher prices affecting consumers? Are they bothered at all? Is it affecting sales?
Sales have been not good. I mean, we've been seeing a slowdown in sales. We've been seeing very negative grinding numbers out of Asia, flattish to down grinding numbers out of Europe and the US. So there's definitely been a slowdown because the prices are high, meaning the companies that make and grind cocoa to make chocolate and everything else have not been able to make money. And they've been trying to pass those prices on to the consumer, and they've been unsuccessful. So if they're not able to make money, they pull back, and that means the demand gets hurt. So far, that lack of demand has not hurt price because production has been hurt more, but I don't believe that you can have demand suffering like this for too much longer without an impact of price, especially if cocoa production starts to improve next year.
And in terms of that demand, do you see it changing the way people consume chocolate?
Well, I think people are going to consume chocolates at what they can afford. The high-end dark chocolate bar may not be what they buy anymore because that's very expensive to a family trying to get by. They may go down to more of a milk chocolate bar, or they may go down to eating something more chocolate flavored cakes. Things where the chocolate involved is a lower cost to the overall price of what they're eating. So I could definitely see a downsizing from high-end dark chocolate to something less.
And speaking of constraining budgets, just lastly, we did see at one point strong demand from China, but with the slowdown there, we're also seeing a slower demand for chocolate. Do you see that changing anytime soon?
I actually think demand from China will and can improve, and I think the main reason is that the reduction in oil prices is going to have a profound impact on Chinese consumers. Chinese consumers, relatively speaking to the United States and Europe, their disposable income is fairly low. So, but they all are affected by reduction in energy prices. And so the $50 or $20 or $100 of savings that they get from lower energy prices is easily going to be used for items like chocolate, pastries, things of that nature, which comparatively aren't that expensive for them on the margin. They may not be going out buying flat screen TVs, but they certainly can increase their consumption of chocolate products a little bit more. So I do think that even though China's been not very good demand-wise, I think the tailwind from energy is actually going to benefit demand in China at least over the next 12 to 18 months.